what do you think of being is really? Are you being in the moment where you lived, or how did it go?
Well, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Because I think the first thing that came into my head was a movie, I think from the 1980s, called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. So when I thought of being, I'm thinking, well, what is that? What does that mean? I suppose being alive, you know, which is one of my favourite songs. I think it's Sondheim. I like musicals. I like the theatre. Being alive, and what does that mean? Yeah, I've been around for a long time, so I've seen a lot of things. I suppose the thing that comes into my head is how I've changed over the course of my life, because of life has changed me a lot. Everything from education through to relationships, jobs, losing jobs, losing relationships, losing my parents was a massive life-changing experience, especially my father, because my father died first. So that really brought home to me my mortality. And I'm really glad that, not that my dad died, but I was really glad that I was able to return to Leeds when the diagnosis of what my father had, he had pancreatic cancer, which isn't a good one. If you're going to get one, it's probably the worst and it's the quickest one. But I think the privilege of being able to go home and go to Yorkshire and support my mum and my sister and be with my dad, because we brought him home. Sorry to get sort of deep and heavy into it, but you asked the question.
It will get deeper with me, don't worry.
Yeah. And the thing is, I can talk about it now because, you know, since then, my mum died too, but actually going through the death of my dad, I can honestly say was the worst experience of my life. It was actually worse than the breakup of a long-term relationship, which that was really, really painful. But actually losing my dad was like, and the irony was, I did a lot of work in HIV and AIDS in the early part of the last part of the last century, when HIV and AIDS was a really serious threat. And so a lot of people died before combination therapies came in. So I'd witnessed a lot of death, which again, each death sort of reminds me that I'm still alive. And somehow I'm a survivor. I don't have HIV, but I am a survivor from that time. And there's an element of guilt and shame as well, that you know, other people have died. But actually losing my dad, that really hit me so hard. A real sense of loss and a real time for me to reflect on my own mortality.
I was saying about being, not only as being mortal, but about what you are, what you bring to your community, your family, to everything, just what you represent. So I draw sometimes. I used to draw more a bit. And you know how artists are like, oh, you need to leave some sort of legacy or just a mark in the world. So I think it's more so about that. So when I was younger, in middle school, like I think 14, whatever, I was very depressed. Not that I'm still not, it's just it was never diagnosed, I was sent to hospital, whatever, which gave me some time to reflect. Because I was like, I'm depressed, right? But it's not as bad as other people have it. So that got me like, I got a grip of life. Like, I need to push on. And honestly, since then, I'm trying to do something that allows people to remember me. And even if I pass away, I will still exist. I'll still be in the moment, like through a drawing, through a song, through a poem.
You raise a really interesting point about almost like the legacy and, I suppose, immortality, or like, for example, I don't have children, and one of the things about losing my dad was a reminder, oh, I don't have children, so like I'm the last of the line, which is sort of it wouldn't have bothered me when I was younger, but as I get older, it's like, oh, you know, what is the legacy? Who am I? Are people going to be talking about me when I've gone? Are they going to say nice things about me when I've gone? And I think that's one of the reasons why I keep a journal. I write a diary every day. I've done it since I was a teenager, with the exception of a few years actually when I first got into a relationship with my long-term partner. For a couple of years I didn't write, and then I've continued to write for the last sort of 20 odd years because it's good to write stuff down, especially when I'm really annoyed or angry or pissed off, and just to get it out of my head and write it out on paper. And sometimes when I look back, or even when I write it out, the issue doesn't always seem as bad as I thought it was when I'm thinking about it, but when I write it down, it somehow just goes. But there's also an element where, you know, I'm not writing it. I'm not Samuel Pepys. I'm not writing it for future generations to read. Or am I? Because I've got them all sort of, you know, in a box somewhere. But that idea of leaving the world without leaving something behind, that causes me a bit of, you know, reflection and thought. The thing is, though, I realised when my dad died that nothing lasts forever. But, you know, all good things come to an end, you know. And the thing is, there's an opportunity there to do other good things. And so that, for me, is like being alive and being, as long as I don't lose hope, that's the thing I'm really passionate about, of not losing hope. Like, I still hope that I can do good things. I still hope that good things will happen, that I can be in the moment and create good things. As long as I have the hope and the passion and the energy to actually, you know, be curious and ask questions and not to get sort of stuck in my ways, which I think when I was in my 40s I did. I got stuck. And I don't want to get stuck because there's a whole world and a whole host of opportunities out there that I really want to embrace. There are so many countries I want to travel to as well, and I want to see the world.
You know, I'll go back to leaving legacy or whatever. I'll give you an example. So in Lithuania, we had this singer who passed away, had many unreleased songs, but then I think it was his family members who found those songs and released them to public afterwards. So I'd say, don't lose hope again, don't lose it. Pass your works to friends. Even if you will not see them into fruition when you're alive, they might continue. Just trust your friends, because through them, you'll exist.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, just today, talking about a friend who died almost 2 years ago, and the fact that we still talk about that person keeps that person alive. In the same way that with my dad, you know, my parents are they're the last thing I think of before I close my eyes when I go to sleep. And I still talk to my parents, which is really odd because when I was a teenager, my mum used to talk to a photo of my grandfather, and I thought, well, but you know, cause like my grandfather died even before I was born, so I never knew him. And being a typical teenager, you know, being a bit, when I think back now, what a lousy thing to do, you know, like to be telling your mum off because she's actually mourning my grandfather's death. But of course, when I lose my parents, now I completely understand that you know, even 20 years after losing my dad, I can be watching something or hearing a piece of music or just thinking, or it might be a film, it could be something completely unrelated, and it triggers an emotional response in me, which brings back a little bit of grief. It's not as anxiety as it was when my father first died, because, you know, even just thinking about my dad when he first died really caused me to sort of hyperventilate and get very, very emotional and upset. But I might just have a second of that. Could be in a movie, could be in a comedy. I mean, it could be a piece of music, could be anything, a place. But in a way, it connects me to my dad. So that is like the legacy, that my father is still, my mother is still there, my friend that I was talking about earlier today with another friend, that the fact that we're talking about them means that they're still alive, that they're not, even though we find it hard, you know, you sort of say that thing, oh, I can't believe they've gone. But actually they haven't, because they're in my head, they're still in my thoughts. And the affection and the love and the, you know, the friendship is still there regardless as if they're living or not. That doesn't die, that doesn't stop just because the person has passed away, that their body has died. The spirit, for me, is still very much alive. And I actually get quite a lot of comfort out of that. I think it's a beautiful thing.
So you have lost your parents already. Currently in the process of losing my grandparents. My last grandparent, my mother's dad, currently is trying to recover from an illness and it's not looking great. So in the earlier stages of what you were going through. Also another thing is most of the grandparents, I lost the one that was here. So my roots are still back at home and I feel disconnected. But I do my best to remember when I go back to Lithuania, I always visit their cemetery graves. I leave a flower, I leave their favorite flower, their favorite color. I tidy them up, I go back to their home. I'm a very hands-on person, so let's say I fix a bag or something. I remember those times when my grandpa used to help me. It's in the small things. Like, we as human beings, we're all connected, and that's the beauty of it. And it doesn't have to be grand, being like, oh, I'm a star. No, you'll vanish like this because of money. When it comes to us, down-to-earth people, it's the actions, and the community will spread and will remember. Like in my village, it's a small village, maybe there used to be 100 people at most. Because Lithuania has right now less than 3 million people living. So for scale, that's, But if someone mentioned my grandpa's last name, they would know. They would know. And people would go to him to fix stuff, tractors, whatever, machinery. My dad would help as well because he's mechanic by trade. And I would join in because I was curious. And through that, my family's name was carried on through actions. And it was spread to another village, being myself. I think that's even bigger thing about this topic that I like inside, community remembering you, but also being in the moment and being yourself.
I want to be me and everything that I bring with me. My history, my ancestry, my talent, my voice, my ideas, my kindness, my courtesy, all of those things that make me a human being. Oh, human being. But do you know what I mean? It's like, what is it? My sister's favourite, my sister always says this, my favourite song for me is I Am What I Am, which is again another sort of torch song from a musical, and I'll probably have that played at my funeral. A bit cliche maybe, but why not? I don't care. I mean, I think it's, I think it's really important for us to be who we are, and and to take pride in who we are, and also to acknowledge, it actually takes a lot of courage and bravery, I think, to be open and out and to live your life as you. It doesn't come easy, and for people who who may have not experienced some of the things that I have experienced, it is quite difficult to sort of put themselves in my shoes, and that can only come with if we talk about it.
People don't know what connects them. They think you need to be exactly the same as another person to form a bond, then do something. No, it can be individual and just share one single thing, and then you can go and do things. That's lost. Many things are lost. Maybe because it's internet, all the things that, we shouldn't be saying this, whatever. But I never succumbed to that because I'm from the village. So you mentioned again, village collective doing something. I grew up on that. We had to move something. Hey, neighbor, can come over? We'll treat you to dinner. And you did it. I think everything, as I've said, the scale of forming a bond is lost. And also, what's in it for me? Do you have money for me or something? That's the main thing. I think capitalism is what's ruining our individuality. Because I can't afford to do this. Yeah, but you can make stuff. You can ask someone else. It's slower, but you'll form a bond with someone. We're told that, you need to decide, your major by when you're 18, and then you'll be stuck with it for the rest of your life. No, jump around, experiment. It's not about money. It's not as much as we need money. It's not about that. Money will come with patience. That's it. That's the word, patience, the word I was looking for. People will have patience for anything. And I was like that when I was young. I was like, oh no, I'm sad. I can't afford anything because I don't have money. I can't go out because I don't have any friends. But all came in due time. I moved to university. I got friends. Sure, I don't talk to them anymore, sadly, because I'm abroad. But through there, I found more friends and more. And like, life is worth living. That's something I would not have said when I was like 14. But now I'll be 28 this year. I'm saying that life is worth living. And you know, my boyfriend, like, we're both damaged individuals. I said like that without going too much into history or whatever. But because we're together, we can move on. And I think that's what people need, because that's what it is, being together. It can be individual, but be together. That's the strength. Strength in numbers.
Absolutely agree with that. For me, it's about the connectedness. I'm in a group, like a family support group. We've all sort of experienced similar things that have brought us together. It's like a 12-step program. And the fascinating thing is that everybody comes, we're all different ages, different sexualities, different genders, different experiences. But there's one thing that unites us. And one of the key things as well is that the connectedness, and when we're together and people will share their life story, their lived experience about an issue or part of their life. And what's interesting is that even though their story may be different, there's always something that I can identify with. And I've even had experiences where somebody's been just talking gobbledygook and like, what on earth are they, this person's obviously unwell because they're just going off and I don't understand a word. And then suddenly they'll say something and think, wow, that's like a gem. That's like a few words of wisdom which I've completely identified with, even though the rest of what they were saying completely, what on earth, I don't understand a word they're saying. But suddenly they'll say something and I think, well, I was meant to hear that because that was really helpful for me. Have I asked you what your hopes are for the future, for the world?
For the future, I want peace in my life. I want peace. Yeah. So I want more people to care in their own way. I don't want people buried in the sand or whatever. Even small things. Talk to your neighbor, talk to your friend, because you can be friends and that friend knows nothing. You can live with your partner and that partner knows nothing. Communication. Communication is the key in everything.